Clarinets, Mr. Venegas here. Today what I would like to do with you guys is I want to go over your fast etude and some of the rhythms that may be concerning to you, starting with some things that you already understand. But first, what I'd like to do is, let's talk about this real quick. You guys see 4/4. Now you've seen this before, and yes, we understand that there's 4 beats in the measure, but you have to remember that no matter what, that's one of the first things you need to look at. That top number tells you how many beats in the measure, right? Now, the bottom number, we haven't really gone into detail about it, but the one thing you need to understand about the bottom number is it tells you what type of note gets the beat. So in this case, whenever you were to see that 4, that means that the quarter note would be what gets the beat. Now, moving forward with your music, we are going to take things that you already know and we're going to build upon what you know. So looking at the measures you have right here, these are super boring. So here's how we're going to do this. We already know that these notes right here are quarter notes. Each quarter note gets 1 beat. Great. Now, using that, we know that these big numbers mean the downbeat and the upbeat are all worth 1 solid beat. Now what we're going to do is we are going to break them apart, because as you can see in your music, if you're looking at it, you see, well, Mr. Venegas, it doesn't look like that. Right, that's okay. But we're going to break it apart into small chunks so that way you can start to build on this knowledge. So let's look at beat number 1. If I were to look at measure 1, is that a quarter note? Yeah, it is. But hey, beat 2 looks completely different. Okay, so I'm going to change it. I pretty much broke apart that quarter note into smaller chunks, which means it becomes eighth notes. 2 eighth notes fit inside of 1 quarter note. So now what ends up happening, each eighth note is worth 1/2 of a beat. So now this 2 is correct for when my foot goes down, but now when my foot goes up, I have to say and. So if I were to count measure 1, it would sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Right. Now I bet you're wondering, you're also saying, Mr. Venegas, it still doesn't look the way that it's in my music. Right. But you have to understand that this eighth note here, these 2 eighth notes are super important for you to understand, because I wrote those directions down for you where your foot goes down and up, because as we break those eighth notes apart, it becomes important for you to know where your foot is so you can find out where you are in the beat. So now if you look at your music in measure 1, there's still 1 note we need to change. Oh yeah, it's that last one. Now that I fixed that, let's go ahead and let's count measure 1 only, and let's see how we do. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and freeze. Do it again. Ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and freeze. Last time. Ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and freeze. Great, and if you guys are still struggling with that, go back and recount it again a few times just to know where your foot is in the beat, and also training yourself to make sure that you listen for where you are in the beat, so that way these intricate rhythms don't catch you by surprise. Now you're probably saying, well, okay, yeah, Mr. Renee, it's about 3/4 of the way correct, but beat number 2 has a lot more notes in there. Here we go, we're going to do this. We're going to break it apart even more. Now, if I were to have a single eighth note and I were to break it apart into 2 other notes, those other notes are going to be called 16th notes. Now, each 16th note is worth 1/4 of a beat. Now, I know that seems a little bit mathy, but it's okay. We got this. Now, I'm going to draw my 16th notes right here next to it. Now that I've changed my 2/8 notes into 4/16 notes, it looks exactly like measure 1, but, how do we count that? Since we broke apart the eighth notes, now we actually have to add syllables in order for you to be able to count it. So when I broke apart the 2/8 notes at the beginning, my down arrow is still there, so I still say 2, but now I add this, E. Now, if I look at the next 16th note, the up arrow is right there, so I'm actually still going up, so I can leave that and there, great. But we have to add one more syllable, just like how we did for that E. We add an A. So if I were to count just those 16th notes, check this out. Down, up, listen to me, toot and a freeze. Did you hear that? Listen again. Down, up, ready, go, toot and a 3. Did you notice that all 4 of those 16th notes fit inside one beat? Now, the reason why I'm having a successful time doing that is because, 1, I'm tapping my foot, and also I know where I am in the beat because of my down and my ups. So you have to make sure that you're tapping your foot and you know where that upbeat is. Now, let's all try to count this measure, only measure 1, and say freeze at the end. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and freeze. Not bad. Try that again. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and freeze. One more time. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and freeze. Let's try that one again. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and freeze. If you guys are still struggling with that rhythm, go back and count it a few more times with me, just so you can get the feeling. Now that we've learned how to count measure number 1, let's move on to measure number 2. We have quarter notes in number 2, but remember, it's not necessarily looking the exact same way yet because we have to remember where our beats are. So let's try to make this look just like that measure. Beat number 1, you can see that I have my quarter note. Now, let's break that apart. Now I've broken up our music, not necessarily into the rhythm yet, but I can leave that last quarter note on beat number 4 because that's the way it is in your music. So now that we have these eighth notes, you have to remember how to count your eighth notes first. Now, let's go ahead and let's practice counting this really quickly so we can get the next subdivision ready to go. Down, up, measure 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, freeze. Now, you guys are probably saying, well, Mr. Venegas, it's different again. Okay, let's go ahead and let's add our new music. Now, I broke apart the second eighth note on the upbeat because, remember, 1/8 note inside of that eighth note is 2 16th notes. So, I broke each one of those apart. Does it look like your music now? Yes, it does. So, now we have to figure out, there's still 1 16th note that I don't have a syllable for. Let's go back to measure 1 and see if I can figure it out. Did you see it? I'm going to add an A to the end of all of these. Now, the only difference is you're probably wondering, well, where's the E? The E is actually inside of that eighth note because remember, that first eighth note is worth 2 16th notes. So you don't say the E, but you have to remember it's there. Let's try counting measure number 2. Make sure you follow where that upbeat is so you know when to say and. Here we go. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, freeze. One big hint, again, make sure you're tapping your foot so you know where that upbeat is, so you have a better chance of success to know where the is of the beat. Here we go. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, freeze. Last time. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, freeze. Hopefully you guys did really well on that rhythm. If not, it's okay. Go back and watch the video. Make sure that you practice getting that rhythm, and also make sure you take the time to practice even just air patterning or wind patterning, or even saying the word ta or ti, just so you can understand how it feels to play that rhythm before you even put notes to it. Now, I bet you've been asking yourself, well, Mr. Venegas, what about the other rhythms that are in there that don't look like these two measures? It's okay. If you understand how these first two measures work, you can understand every single measure that's inside of this piece of music. Because you've learned a lot of things today. You learned how many beats are inside of your measure. You've also learned how many 16th notes fit inside of one beat. And you've also learned how to count 16th notes and how to adjust based on which 16th notes there are in the music and where they are in terms of the beat. So, take what you've learned from these two measures and apply them into the rest of your music, and you will have a better chance of success. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Mr. Strauss, or send us an email, and we will be more than happy to help you. This is Mr. Venegas, signing off. Bye-bye.